Hi, I'm Glauco Sampaio. I'm Chief Information, Security, Fraud Prevention, and Privacy Officer at Cielo in Brazil. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you talking about security, cybersecurity in RSA Conference 2021. I will talk today about tests. Tests is something that we as cybersecurity professionals do it all the time, but I want to show something that I consider really important and can bring good results for us as cybersecurity professionals. Are we secure? That's the question. We heard this a lot from our boss or from our executives or even from our team. And it's really hard to ensure this. We cannot ensure that we are secure, but we work hard every day to be better and to improve the security of our company. But how can we guarantee this? What's the methods? How can we as cybersecurity professionals can ensure and can elevate the level of the security in our companies? That's part of our job. And to do this, we use a lot of type of tests. We have different types of this. We can do tests in application level, as static, as SAST, DAST, YAST, MAST. Static is dynamic, is running through applications, running manually. We can do tests on the database security, using vulnerability scans, solutions. We do manual tests like ethical hacking and pen testing to try to penetrate in a company, to bypass the controls. We have a big number of this. It's not just these tests that are on the screen. We have more than this. But is this enough? That's the question. All of them matter. They matter. They must be part of our strategy. They are good. They can find vulnerability. They can help us to correct what's wrong, what are not following the policies, the software development policies, the infrastructure, the patch management policies. They find this type of issues, and we have to use them to improve the security. It must be part of our strategy. But the question is this enough? That's my main question, and is something that I'm working hard from the beginning, and connects to the question that are we secure? I'm not feel comfortable to answer this question that we are secure or not, because we have different things to learn all the time. The scenarios change, the environments change, new technicals and new tacticals of attack appears all the time. And the tests that we are running before this is not enough to ensure what we have to ensure. So it's the big problem. We have a big number of controls. If you take a look of our companies and make a quick map of what we have in place in the environment, we can find hundreds of controls, from the most basics like patch management, firewall rules, to the most advanced ones like data loss prevention controls, web applications protections, and all of the controls that support our policies and support what's the level of security of the company. And we have to, it's part of our job, ensure this, that we have a big number of controls. We must have this, but we have to ensure that this control is working good. And we saw a big number of security incidents, breaches, data leakers all the time. We are seeing the media. We are seeing this in our own companies. We are working on this all the time, and we have to be in mind that we are in the middle of something, in the middle of the company to respond on incidents. And most of the times when we look at the big incidents, we saw that basic issues are found on the forensics. We saw that controls that must be in place for a long is not working anymore, and they can cause incidents. We also be surprised by audit finds and audit finds not for new things, but for old things, for issues that we solved before. We solved these issues before a long time ago, and the auditor came and find that the control is not working as we designed. And we received this recurrent audit find. And as a cybersecurity executive, it's something that makes me really sad. And it's something that I talk to my team that we can and we must avoid. The one audit find that show a problem in something that we solved before is not good for us as cybersecurity executives. I know most of the companies have this change management process to ensure that every change in the environment are analyzed and don't cause anything wrong or don't broke anything that was in place. But we cannot be there all the time, and we cannot guarantee when we have a big number of controls that we are able to guarantee that one change in the environment are not putting something, a control, a process, or a security technology outside the designed process. One change in the network can cause a security bypass, or even a change in the Windows policy can break something, can change the configuration of a security issue. So we cannot trust in full time in the change management. Even if we have security guys looking at the changes, we cannot guarantee that the guy who are implementing something are completely focused and don't do anything wrong and disable or change something that cause a security flaw on the environment. They can disable a security control. So what can we do about this? We are not able to see everything that's working, everything that are done in our environment, but we have to do something. We have to do our job and try to find these issues. We have to run more tests to find that if the controls that are in place in a company are still there, working as are they designed. And I will show five examples of tests to illustrate what I'm talking about. The first one is focused on data loss prevention rules. We all know the importance of this, and we have a bunch of rules in our DLP solutions. One for the financial companies are that we cannot allow credit card informations to be sent and received by email. So we create a rule that not allow this. This email must be blocked when sent internally or even externally. And as a process, we designed that if this happens and anyone tries to send a credit card information through email, a ticket must be opened in the DLP solution. This email must be blocked, and this ticket must be treated by an analyst in 4 hours. And as part of the process, the rule book, an email must be sent to notify the superior of the email sender. It's one example of a process that support a DLP rule. And what we can do, we can force this. We can simulate an email. We can generate a database of credit cards information and try to send it to a personal email or to someone in the company to see if what we designed is still working. And with this test, what we can get a result. We can see if the DLP rule is still matching, is still blocking the email as the rule is designed. The ticket is automatically open in the system to be treated by the analyst. The analyst is following the rule book. They are doing the incident response as the processes are designed, and the processes are still be run in the SLA in the 4 hours that were designed. This is one example. We can test with one email. We can test with if the whole process are still working and supporting the cybersecurity control. Another example is focused on unauthorized account creation. This happens in every company. We know that not just the cybersecurity and the guys who are in charge of the account creation on Active Directory has the authorization to do this, and we have to test if someone are not doing this. So the rule is no one outside the IDM solution or the IDM team are allowed to create users on the Active Directory. So if this happens, what the whole process is designed to do? A ticket must be opening. These tickets must be treated into 8 hours, and we design it to block the account, the new account, and the creator of this account must be notified by email that he made something that is not following the policy. And we do this. We create a credential, we create a user in the Active Directory outside using a credential that is not allowed. And as results, we can see different scenarios. We can see if the log is still going to the CM. This is a problem that's happening all the time. Someone changed something and the logs that was coming to our CM are not coming anymore. So we have to test this, and this situation can force this scenario. The alert was generated as we designed it to check. The analyst must work on this alert, and the ticket was open on the system. It was treated during the official SLA. The account created was blocked. We can force this and test all the scenario. Another one is related to privilege escalation. We can have a policy that not allow anyone to include users in the domain admin or even global admin or other administrator groups. And if this is happening, we have to automatically disable the user and block the guy who made this inclusion. It's a high risk credential, a high risk group. So we have to block these movements and block who made this, and create a ticket to be treated by the analysts. We force this. We go there with a credential and put someone in the domain admin group, and basically we see the same result of the test. We see if the log is generated by the server and it's going to RCM. If the automation is working as designed, blocking the user, removing the privilege, creating the tickets to be treated by the analyst in the same time in this SLA. We can see if the whole behavior of this process is still working as designed. Another one, it's remote access control. This is focused on guys who are working through VPNs, and the corporate policies do not allow non-corporate computers to be connected on the VPN. So if this happens, what we designed it to do. We design a process to automatically block the user, block the IP address that they are connecting through a non-corporate user. If the connection was with a real user and have success, they have the username and password. We block the user too, and we create a ticket to be treated by the analyst. So again, we see if the log is still generating, it's still going to the CM, the automation is still working, it's still working as we design it. The behavior of the process is still working as we have to be in the company. Another example is focus on endpoint security. No one can disable or even try to disable the security solutions that running on the endpoints, the antiviral, the DLP agent, or the EDR, or another one that you have in the endpoint. So if this happens, what the SOAR must do? The SOAR must quarantine the computer because something's wrong, or the user are doing something that is not allowed, or the computer can be compromised. So we have to quarantine this computer and open a ticket to be treated by an analyst. And with this test, we see almost the same results. We see if the log is generated, it's going to CM, the rule is working as we designed, the automation is there, quarantine, put the computer on quarantine, the analyst is running the playbook in the SLA. Basically, we are testing if the control is running from the beginning to the end. It's a type of test that is designed to test the whole process, not just the control. We test our team, we test the security team. If our analyst is running the playbook, it's doing what he must be done in an incident like this. It's just 5 examples. I'm sure that we are looking at our companies now, and we are seeing a bunch of other controls that can be simply tested using this methodology, this approach. It's nothing new, it's nothing so different, but it's a different approach. We don't have this approach in mind all the time, and we have the consequence of that. We suffer incidents, we receive audit fines for something that for something that was in place for a long. So we all know that is important. We have hundreds of scenarios to test this, and we can do a big list in 5 minutes if I take a seat with our team and propose them to use this approach, and I'm sure that we will have good results. And to help you in this journey, I will show to you 5 steps to be in place in the next weeks to start this process. We must try this in our companies. In the first week, we can focus on map the controls. I know that after these examples, you have a big list in your mind, but you must focus on controls that is related to the crown jewels. It's something that most of the companies have in mind and must address this approach, because as I told you before, we have hundreds of controls, and we are not able to test all of them on the first time. So we have to focus on the most critical security controls, and the most criticals are related to the crown jewels. But you also have in mind that it's a test. We are testing an approach. So don't put efforts on big scenarios or even in controls that are really, really hard to test. Focus on the crown jewels and something that is quite easy to run the tests. After get the maturity of this process, you can run tests on high level security controls, but you can start with the smallest one. Talk to your red team. Your red team has a really good view of your environment and knowledge to help you finding these controls and find where you can approach, when you can use this approach and run the tests. Use the previous audit finds. We have the audit reports there, and we can use these reports to find security controls that are in place, are placed around the crown jewels or in the past, and we can use these reports to bring this knowledge and help us to create these lists. And I'm telling about thinking small at the beginning. Don't try to use a big number of security controls or even try to test hard and difficult scenarios. Start small. It's a tip. On the second week, you can choose 3 or 5 of these scenarios and use them to start. Define. We have to map. If we don't have from the implementation of the control, we have to map what we expect to be the full process that are around this scenario. As I told you before on the examples, we have to test a process. So the control must do this, the analyst must do this, that's the expected response. So we have to map this because it's important to follow all this scenario and see if the response are correct from the beginning to the end. Create the use test case. Sit with your team, use the red team expertise to show them what you want to do, and use them to create the tests. They know how to test. They know how to bypass the control. So use your team to create the tests and run the tests. Run the tests and wait for the results. If everything is worked as designed, congratulations, you can be a happy security professional and go home. If not, you must understand what's happening and address the corrections. Understanding the scenario, you can see where the problems are and address the corrections. You can find with the guys who are in charge of the process what's happening and apply the corrections. Help the team to solve the issue. And after the corrections are applied on the environment, run the tests again and wait until the results. If something wrong again, and it can happen, the process can fail in another part, in another guy from the team, you can test the analyst, the different analysts, or you can have succeeded and the process are run it from the beginning to the end with success. After that, you must share the results, socializing the results. Socialize with the team, the technical team. You must take the guys who are in charge of the process and show them the methodology. Show what you want to do, what's the result that you are expecting. Show to your team, because most of these tests are putting fingers to the security guys. So do this, share the results with them. Just after that, show the results to the management and to the stakeholders. This is important and adds all the tests, but you must show this before to the technical team. Otherwise, we will have a big number of enemies in the company. Establish a formal process of tests. After that, after show to your stakeholder, to your boss, or to the other stakeholders, you must propose a formal process to that. I'm sure that no one in the company will see the results and will not support your initiative. We are creating something that brings value to the company, and the executives understand this. So propose a formal process to this. Define a routine to run these tests. Try to automate this. Even if you will use scripts for this. We don't have a big solution for a SOA or a solution for automation. We can use scripts to this. And you must define a list, a big list. You try with 3 scenarios, but I'm sure that we have a big list of controls to test. So define a prioritization list of the security controls. We are not be able to run this test for the whole bunch of controls that we have on the environment at the same time. So define a prioritization list and focus on the most critical control, and create a routine for all the new security controls implemented on your environment. Generate a test book to be part of this process. You can use the new implementations to create new tests, scenarios, and put in your formal process. I talk a little bit about automation. It's quite important, but you can start without automation. And today we have solutions for that. We have the breach and attack simulations that can help us, but they don't solve the problem, because most of the solutions are focused on technical tests. You can implement a little bit of process testing through this, but they are not completed. They can help you to get a larger scale on the controls, but they don't solve the problems. As the same, the RPA solutions. You can use RPA solutions to run the tests for you, and you are able to run a big number of tests, a large number of tests on the same period, on the same time, using RPA solutions. It's important, but as I told you before, it's not a mandatory issue. You can start doing this manually. I know companies who start this with just a few hours of analysts, of the security analysts, and get really good results of this. And to the end, I want to share what I learned in my practical experience. I'm working in security for more than 20 years, and I'm working with this model for almost 10 years from now. And I implement them in 3 different companies, and I can share with you a little bit of my experience. What's the challenge and what's the benefits of this approach? The main challenge for everything that we made in cybersecurity are resources. We don't have resources, we don't have analysts, we don't have cybersecurity professionals in our team, in our teams, doing nothing. They are all full of job. They are running tests, they are running the operation, but we can find a little part of the time of these analysts to implement this. If you sit with the team and get half an hour of each analyst, I'm sure that they are able to run these tests. They are able to design the test scenarios. They can dedicate half an hour, 1 hour to start the process. For sure, in the future, with this running a big number of tests, we will need a dedicated team to this. But in the beginning, we can use our own team to start this process. Don't create enemies, more enemies, because we love to create enemies inside the companies. Be careful when presenting, when showing the results to the technical team, to your team, because as I told you before, we are testing the cybersecurity team during this process, testing the technical team, testing the IT team. So be careful when presenting this to the guy who was in charge of the process. No one's like to receive a critical an issue on what he's doing all the time. Be careful with this. Try a partnership approach. Show them the results. Show that you are doing this to avoid issues, avoid audit finds that's really worse than if it was presented by you. And don't start with a big number of tests. Focus on the most critical control, the controls that are not so hard to test, and don't try to do 100 of different tests on the first time. Start small, start with 5, with 10, and growing this number during the time. Start small and put new one scenario, 2 scenario, 3, 4, 5 every month, every period. You can create this routine and grow the number of scenarios without starting with the big one. If you start with a big number, you will not able to finish the tests, and you cannot create the routine to run this test, because this must be a routine. You must run the test all the time, every month, every week, because the problem can appear now, or can appear like a month or a year after the implementation. That's the importance of run the test periodically. And talking about benefits, what can we generate for the company with this process? We can reduce the uncertainty about this cybersecurity controls. As the first question that I show, are we secure? With this, I can guarantee that we reduce the uncertainty of this answer. Is not we are not be 100% secure, but as a new type of test, we are bringing more security to the company. We will reduce the audit fines over existing controls. That, as I told you before, is something not so good for us as cybersecurity professionals and for as cybersecurity executives. Receive audit fines in existing control is not so good, and you mitigate the risk of incidents. We implement a bunch of controls, and we have to guarantee that it's good that these controls are there to solve to mitigate the risks, and with this we can mitigate the risk of incidents on our environment. And as cybersecurity professionals and cybersecurity executives, we can try to sleep a little bit better than we sleep the previous night. Every time that we test a scenario, that we test a control, and we see that this control is still working as designed, we can try to sleep a little bit better. So I hope that everyone are good with this new approach. It's not a critique for for the other type of tests. As I told you before, we have to run this test too, but this approach, a continuous control approach for the cybersecurity controls, is something that I really believe that bring values to the company and for us as cybersecurity professionals. Thank you.